Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're embarking on a fascinating journey, really unpacking a stack of sources that challenges, well, pretty much everything you thought you knew about one of the most iconic periods in American history, the Oregon Trail. Forget those, sepia-toned photographs of stoic pioneers, or maybe the pixelated versions from old video games.
Right, the fun, adventurous ones.
Exactly, because what if I told you that whole romantic vision completely obscures a far grimmer, far more brutal reality?
Indeed. And these documents we've looked at, they really reveal that the Oregon Trail was less a grand adventure and, well, much more a relentless gauntlet of survival. That's what pioneers faced day in, day out from the 1840s to the 1860s.
Like Crucible, really.
Absolutely. It tested every single facet of human endurance. And it shows this profound disconnect between the dream, the hope they started with, and the frankly agonizing reality they encountered.
So our mission today is to systematically dismantle those romanticized narratives. We want to illuminate the sheer unvarnished truth of the trail.
Yeah.
We'll show you why the average modern individual, us, accustomed to our conveniences, our medical advancements, our infrastructure, why we would likely not endure even a single winter on that trail, let alone finish the entire 2,000-mile journey from Missouri to Oregon City.
It's almost unthinkable, really.
We'll explore the pervasive threats of disease, that constant gnawing hunger, the crushing weight of despair, but also, maybe surprisingly, the unexpected ways pioneers found resilience amidst it all. Okay, so let's unpack this powerful symbol first. The Oregon Trail. It's just etched into the American psyche, isn't it? A testament to westward expansion, beckoning hundreds of thousands with promises of fertile land, abundant resources, a completely fresh start.
Yeah, the promised land idea was strong.
And the numbers are just astonishing. We're talking somewhere between, 350,000 to 420,000 individuals?
That's right, a huge migration.
And they truly believed this 2,000-mile trek was their pathway to a better life. You read the pamphlets, the letters sent back east. They talk about opportunity, freedom, escaping, economic downturns or social constraints back home.
It was a powerful lure, almost irresistible for many.
But what's truly striking in our sources is how quickly that pathway to a better life seemed to, morph into this relentless gauntlet of survival.
Almost immediately, yeah. And that profound disconnect between those initial, almost utopian aspirations and the harsh, immediate realities they smacked into on the plains, it created a dangerous level of psychological unpreparedness.
They just weren't ready for it.
Not really. Many pioneers harbored this sort of naive optimism. They significantly underestimated the physical and maybe even more so the emotional brutalities of the journey.
They pictured what? A long walk, a few bumps in the road.
Something like that. Maybe a few minor inconveniences, sure, but certainly not a daily grinding struggle against starvation, illness, and, death. And this lack of mental foresight, this deep-seated underestimation, it just compounded the physical dangers. It made the whole experience far more devastating than they could have possibly imagined.
So that hope that pushed them westward.
For countless individuals, it just shattered. Pretty quickly, too, upon facing the unvarnished truth of the trail's unforgiving nature. Their mental fortitude, often untested against that kind of prolonged elemental struggle, sometimes gave way long before their bodies did.
And that sets a pretty grim tone right from the start, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Our sources introduced this chilling moniker for the trail, the nation's longest graveyard.
Yeah.
When you hear that, just take a moment. Imagine what that truly implies. A trail literally lined with graves.
It's a stark image, almost unimaginable. And the statistics, they don't just back it up, they amplify the horror. The overall mortality rate was staggering. Nearly 1 in 10 pioneers.
1 in 10?
Yeah, which translates to an estimated 30,000 to 65,000 individuals who just didn't make it. Succumbed somewhere along the way.
Wow.
But to truly grasp the scale of this loss, our sources highlight a statistic that, it should give us all pause. There were, on average, 10 to 20 graves for every mile along the entire 2,000-mile route.
10 to 20 per mile.
Per mile. Picture that. Every few hundred feet, another life extinguished. Another hastily dug grave, often unmarked.
That immediate shift in perspective, understanding the trail, not just as a route, but as this vast, continuous cemetery. It really sets the tone, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It strips away any lingering notions of some grand romantic adventure right from the outset.
Okay, here's what struck me most in the sources, and frankly, it terrified me. Disease. It wasn't just a problem for pioneers. The data suggests it was the problem.
Overwhelmingly so.
Our sources are unequivocal. Disease claimed more lives than all other causes combined, accounting for a horrifying 9 out of 10 pioneer deaths.
9 out of 10?
Think about that. Almost every single death on the Oregon Trail was due to illness. This wasn't some journey of heroic battles against outlaws or, grand encounters with charging buffalo.
Yeah.
It was a desperate, losing war against an invisible enemy.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, Asiatic cholera was the undisputed king of death on the trail. It earned its designation as the unseen destroyer.
Why unseen?
Well, its fearsome reputation was chillingly well-deserved because of its terrifying speed and virulence, but also because they didn't understand what caused it, how it spread.
Oh, okay.
A perfectly healthy individual, maybe laughing over breakfast, could be struck by the disease and be in their grave by noon. Or certainly within 12 to 24 hours. That fast. The symptoms were agonizing, horrific, intense cramping stomach pain, rapidly escalating diarrhea, and vomiting leading to extreme fluid loss. Swift dehydration so severe it could literally turn the victim's skin a terrifying blue or purple.
Oh my gosh.
The body would become cold, the eyes sunken, but the mind often remained terrifyingly clear until the very end.
And this wasn't just isolated cases, right? This wasn't just a few unlucky people.
Not at all. It swept through wagon trains like wildfire. In some particularly devastating years, especially during the big cholera epidemics of 1849, 1850, 1852, certain wagon trains reported losing as many as 2/3 of their entire company
2/3 gone.
to this single deadly affliction, which raises that important, deeply tragic question. Why was it so unstoppable?
Yeah.
And the answer lies in the pioneers' fundamental lack of understanding of germ theory. They couldn't possibly comprehend the true cause of cholera, which we now know is bacterial contamination of water, primarily.
So they had no idea how to prevent it.
Exactly. This ignorance rendered effective prevention impossible, and it fostered this overwhelming sense of helplessness. They blamed it on bad air, miasma, or an imbalance of humors, or even, divine wrath, anything but the actual cause.
So beyond the awful physical suffering, that lack of knowledge must have added this huge psychological burden, watching loved ones die from an enemy you can't see or fight.
Precisely. Paralyzing.
So cholera was the primary killer. Terrifying. But it wasn't the only one, was it? Pioneers faced this relentless onslaught of other illnesses, too.
Oh, absolutely. The sources list dysentery, which also caused severe dehydration, typhoid fever, often from contaminated food, measles, which could be deadly in adults and children without immunity or modern vaccines, mumps, smallpox, a true killer in its own right back then, tuberculosis, that chronic wasting disease, and something they often called mountain fever.
What was mountain fever?
Likely a catch-all term for various fevers caused by exposure, tick bites, maybe other infections they encountered in higher altitudes. But what's crucial to understand is that the constant exhaustion, the gnawing hunger, the pervasive thirst, it just exacerbated all these illnesses.
Weakened immune systems.
Exactly. It turned what might be minor ailments back home into life-threatening conditions out there on the trail.
And the primary catalyst for all this rampant spread.
Pervasive and unavoidable unsanitary conditions. I mean, just think about it. Pioneers frequently camped amidst garbage, human waste, animal waste left by parties just days or weeks ahead of them. They inadvertently contracted diseases and then, of course, spread them further down the trail, creating this grim legacy for those who followed. Water sources, indispensable for survival, were routinely contaminated.
The Platte River example you mentioned earlier is just chilling.
It really is. Our sources vividly describe it being used simultaneously for bathing, for doing laundry, including soiled diapers, bloody clothing for emptying chamber pots, and as convenient open-air latrine for hundreds, maybe thousands of people and animals.
And yet they drank from it.
They had to. They refilled their drinking water barrels from its polluted waters, utterly unaware of the microscopic dangers lurking within, thereby perpetuating this horrifying cycle of agonizing death. And on top of that, you had poisoning from overly alkaline drinking water in certain areas.
What did that do?
Caused severe digestive distress, kidney issues, another common and dangerous occurrence, adding yet another layer of risk to something as basic as staying hydrated.
That's truly horrifying to visualize. So the very act of mass migration, with tens of thousands of people and their animals moving along the same narrow corridor, it essentially created this perfect environment for epidemics.
A devastating feedback loop.
Yeah.
Exactly. The crucial need for water became the very mechanism for widespread infection and death.
The continuous movement meant biological hazards weren't diluted or dissipated.
No, they were concentrated, left behind, amplifying the problem with each successive wagon train. The trail became, in effect, a giant linear petri dish. You can only imagine the smell, the flies, the pervasive sense of sickness that must have hung in the air for weeks on end in some places.
And here's this incredible irony. Pioneers actually carried medicine kits. They packed them meticulously before they left home. Yet our sources tell us the treatments were largely ineffective.
Or worse.
And in many cases, actively harmful.
Yeah, their typical medical kit contents really highlight the profound limitations of 19th century medicine. They carried things called physicing pills, basically harsh purgatives or laxatives meant to cleanse the body. Castor oil, another favorite. Rum or whiskey used as a general tonic, sort of a cure-all.
Right.
Peppermint oil for stomach issues, quinine for fevers, Hartshorn ammonia for snakebite, citric acid for scurvy, and then a formidable array of powerful addictive substances like opium, laudanum, which is opium dissolved in alcohol, and morphine for pain relief.
Highly addictive stuff.
Extremely. And disturbingly, they also carried calomel, which is a mercury compound.
Mercury.
Yes. Its toxic effects, which included severe vomiting and diarrhea, were tragically mistaken for effective healing. Purging the illness, they thought.
Oh, that's terrible.
And what's crucial to understand is their entire approach to illness was rooted in this ancient, deeply flawed four humors theory, which had dominated Western medicine for centuries.
Right, you mentioned that. What exactly was the four humors theory? How did it guide treatment?
Well, this ancient theory basically said good health resulted from a precise balance of four fundamental bodily fluids: blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm. Illness, insanity, even things like moral failings were believed to stem from an imbalance.
So the goal was to rebalance.
Exactly. Restore balance, often through really aggressive, frankly dangerous means. Imagine patients being placed in bathtubs full of freezing cold water, or wrapped in soaking wet sheets for hours to draw out bad humors, or restricted to extremely narrow, debilitating diets.
Wow.
Our sources note that hospitals of the time, they weren't centers of healing like we think of them. They were places for the poor, the dying, and the insane. Places where open wounds almost invariably led to fatal infections within weeks, if not days, because there was zero understanding of sanitation or antiseptic practices.
So the medicines they carried.
They offered this false sense of security. Pioneers felt equipped, they thought they could handle sickness. But their fundamental lack of understanding of disease mechanisms meant their efforts were often futile, counterproductive, sometimes directly exacerbated suffering. It led to prolonged agony and likely increased mortality when the remedies inevitably failed against something like cholera.
So just to recap the scale of this,
Yeah.
the data in our sources is really telling. Disease. 9 out of 10 pioneer deaths. That's the overwhelming threat.
By far.
But it wasn't the only threat. Accidents were the second leading cause. Wagon accidents being the most common type, horrific, crushing injuries. Drowning claimed hundreds of lives in treacherous river crossings. That Green River stat, 37 deaths in 1850 alone, is stark.
Yeah, incredibly dangerous.
Firearms were the second leading cause of injury or death, mostly accidental discharges. Then you had animal-related incidents, extreme weather, lightning, apple-sized hail, dust storms, cold, heat. And surprisingly, maybe counterintuitively for some listeners, Native American attacks were very rare.
Extremely rare, comparatively.
Fewer than 400 deaths by 1860, a tiny fraction compared to disease or accidents. In fact, our sources suggest immigrants often killed more Native Americans in hostile encounters than vice versa.
That's often overlooked. It really paints a picture where the dangers were mostly environmental, accidental, or self-inflicted due to lack of knowledge, far outweighing the perceived external threats from indigenous populations.
Okay, let's turn our attention now to something just as fundamental. Food. Imagine setting out on a 6-month journey. Think about that, half a year.
It's immense.
Equivalent to walking from New York to San Francisco, basically. With no access to refrigeration, no 7-Elevens, no grocery stores. The logistical hurdle of just provisioning for that journey, ensuring enough food, adequate nutrition for weeks, months on end, it was absolutely immense.
Monumental is the word. A typical prairie schooner, that iconic covered wagon, had a limited capacity, maybe 1,600 to 2,000 pounds, and almost all of that precious space was dedicated to food.
What were the staples? What did they actually pack?
Well, they packed hundreds, sometimes thousands of pounds of dried goods and cured meats. Things that would last. Flour was crucial for bread. Biscuits, though, baking was tricky, usually reserved for rest days because you needed fuel and time.
Right.
Hardtack, that simple, durable cracker made from flour, water, salt, incredibly long-lasting, but apparently pretty unappetizing. Cured bacon was prized, good shelf life, calorically dense, versatile. Rice and dried beans were popular, easy to store, high nutritional value. And coffee. Coffee was essential, an energy booster, a morale lifter, packed in significant quantities.
Gotta have coffee.
Definitely. They also carried sugar, dried fruit for vitamins, cornmeal, lard for cooking, a few spices to try and make the bland diet more palatable. Some families even tried bringing a milk cow or maybe a coop of chickens for fresh milk and eggs.
That must have been tough, managing live animals like that.
Incredibly tough. Offered welcome relief from the preserved diet, but added significant logistical complexity and risk.
And the coffee. You mentioned earlier it had this surprising, almost accidental public health benefit, something they couldn't have known about.
That's a fascinating insight, yeah, hidden within the sources. Unbeknownst to them, the simple necessity of boiling water to make coffee.
To make it drinkable, basically.
Oh, right. That simple act inadvertently served as a vital public health measure. Boiling killed germs, including the deadly cholera bacteria that might otherwise have sickened them.
Wow. So a daily ritual saved lives without them even realizing why.
Exactly. This hidden benefit of a common commodity, consumed mostly for its stimulating properties and comfort, highlights how an everyday practice, driven by just culinary preference, could accidentally contribute to survival. Kind of an accidental ingenuity born of necessity.
But despite all that careful packing and the lucky break with coffee, getting fresh food along the trail, that was a whole different challenge, wasn't it? Far harder than many expected.
Oh, absolutely. Formidable. Hunting, yeah, it was a source of fresh game like buffalo or deer, but it consumed precious time. And ammunition, which wasn't always abundant and could be expensive.
Plus, everyone else was hunting too.
Exactly. The sheer volume of thousands of travelers moving along the same routes led to a rapid scarcity of wild game, those massive buffalo herds, driven away or decimated in the main trail corridors. Hunting got harder and less productive the further they went.
What about trading posts?
Occasionally available, yes, but they sold food and other goods at exorbitant, truly exploitative prices. Prices few overlanders could afford. Our sources mention prices equivalent to the cost of an oxen for certain goods.
An oxen? That's insane.
It forced desperate choices. Pioneers did sometimes fish or trade with Native Americans for supply salmon in the Pacific Northwest, for instance. But these opportunities were inconsistent, not reliable sources for daily food.
And if finding food was a struggle, the fight for safe water was maybe even more critical, more pervasive. Water was both life and death.
Precisely. Safe drinking water was frequently scarce, and available sources, as we discussed, were often severely contaminated. Human waste, animal waste, garbage, carcasses left by previous parties.
A toxic soup.
Pretty much. This widespread contamination was a primary driver of cholera, dysentery, other devastating diseases. It turned essential water sources into vectors of illness. Plus, that alkaline water poisoning we mentioned, common in certain regions, dangerous, caused severe illness.
And just finding water at all could be hard.
Oh, yeah. The intense heat of the plains and deserts could cause springs and creeks to dry up entirely, forcing families and their crucial draft animals to endure agonizing thirst and dehydration, sometimes for days, leading to further physical breakdown, vulnerability to disease. And the air itself, that dry, dusty air, just made the thirst relentless.
So when you put it all together, the hunger, the disease, they were deeply interconnected with the environment, weren't they? Almost a tragic, self-perpetuating cycle.
Exactly right. The scarcity of fresh food forced reliance on that monotonous diet of preserved goods, contributing directly to nutritional deficiencies like scurvy weakness, bleeding gums, open wounds.
Awful.
Simultaneously, the desperate need for water led to the widespread use of contaminated sources, directly fueling disease outbreaks. And the sheer number of immigrants not only depleted local game, they also extensively polluted the limited water supplies, creating this devastating feedback loop. Environmental strain, food scarcity, disease, they all reinforced each other, exacerbating the hardship, pushing people to the absolute brink. It was a constant compounding assault.
And while draft animals certainly suffered immensely, the trail was littered with their carcasses, a grim sight.
A constant reminder of the toll.
Pioneers themselves frequently faced severe food shortages. This created this pervasive, almost unbearable psychological burden, a constant underlying anxiety about where the next meal was coming from. And our sources share some truly harrowing instances of extreme starvation, desperation, showing the absolute limits of human endurance.
One of the most powerful, heartbreaking accounts comes from a woman named Tabitha Brown. She vividly describes sufferings from that time no tongue can tell. She talked about how her party was left to starvation, how they traversed a canyon strewn with dead horses, broken wagons, bedding, clothing, and the remains of people who had either been too fatigued or too starved to finish the journey.
Just unimaginable. Remains of people.
Yeah. And even after receiving relief provisions, almost a miracle, her party found themselves again in a state of starvation just days later. It shows how fragile that tightrope was. Her words, though understated, convey this profound, gnawing misery that goes way beyond just feeling hungry.
And then, of course, there's the most infamous, the most horrifying example.
Yeah.
The one everyone knows that serves as this stark reminder of humanity pushed to its absolute limit. The Donner Party.
The ultimate cautionary tale.
Our sources remind us nearly 40 members perished, and the survivors, trapped by impossible snows in the Sierra Nevada, resorted to cannibalism.
The unthinkable.
Patty Reed's experience, recounted in our sources, her mother boiling oxhide for food, just trying to get some sustenance from leather. Imagine the smell, the taste, the sheer desperation of that act.
It really highlights the profound physical and psychological toll. That constant, relentless battle against hunger on the Oregon Trail just dismantles any lingering romantic notions about the frontier spirit, doesn't it?
Okay, beyond disease and hunger, the trail itself threw countless physical obstacles at the pioneers, and arguably the most perilous single physical obstacle, often more dangerous than anything else they faced day to day, were the river crossing.
Oh, absolutely.
This wasn't just about getting your feet wet. This was a life or death gamble every single time.
That's exactly right. Swollen rivers, especially during spring melts or after heavy rains, were immensely dangerous. They could easily capsize a heavy wagon, leading to immediate drowning people, oxen, and the devastating loss of invaluable supplies. Food, tools, clothing, everything just swept away.
And the animals.
Animals, especially oxen, frequently panicked in deep, swift currents, making the wagons impossible to control, contributing to overturning. Historical accounts document hundreds of drownings crossing major rivers like the Kansas, the North Platte, the Snake, the Columbia.
These weren't isolated incidents.
Not at all. In 1850 alone, that grim statistic, 37 individuals drowned just trying to navigate the notoriously difficult Green River, simply trying to move forward. The sheer volume and speed of the water, combined with really rudimentary crossing methods, floating wagons swimming animals across, made these points true death traps.
And there was another layer of hardship here too, wasn't there? Beyond just the natural danger, pioneers faced a kind of economic exploitation that preyed on their desperation.
Yeah, this raises an important point about the human element amidst the natural dangers. Ferrymen, entrepreneurs who set up crossings at strategic points. They recognized the pioneers' desperate need for safe passage.
And charged accordingly.
And charged exorbitantly, up to $16, sometimes more, for a wagon, which our sources point out was nearly equivalent to the entire price of an oxen back then.
Wow, a fortune.
A huge sum. One ferry operation reportedly amassed $65,000 in a single summer. An unimaginable amount of money. It just highlights how the sheer desperation of travelers was leveraged for significant profit.
Adding insult to injury, really. Stripping them of precious capital even as they risked their lives.
Exactly. A stark reminder that even out there, human greed could be as formidable an adversary as nature itself.
So beyond the treacherous rivers, wagon accidents. You mentioned they were the second leading cause of death overall. Shockingly common and frequently fatal. It seems hard to imagine today, but those massive, unwieldy wagon wheels were an immediate, deadly threat.
Yeah, falling beneath them. It almost invariably resulted in instant death by crushing. It's a horrifying detail the sources provide.
Children were especially vulnerable.
Tragically, yes. Often falling from the wagon seat or maybe while walking alongside and stumbling. Edward Lennox recounted a chilling story of a young boy whose head was crushed. Another source mentions an 8-year-old named Richard, who died instantly after falling from a wagon, caught beneath those heavy iron-rimmed wheels.
Awful.
And you have to remember, these wagons often weighed over a ton with cargo. They were incredibly unwieldy over rough, uneven terrain, impossible to stop quickly.
No brakes, really.
Not effective ones. The lack of proper roads, the constant jolting, the sheer effort. It meant constant vigilance was necessary, yet impossible to maintain perfectly for 6 long months. A momentary lapse could be fatal.
And then Firearms. Pioneers carried, as our sources put it, irrational amounts of arms. Rifles, pistols, shotguns,
Bristling with weaponry.
largely fueled by this unfounded, often exaggerated fear of Native American attacks. But firearms themselves became the second leading cause of immigrant injury and death.
That's the terrible irony. Most pioneers had little or no training, no real experience handling these weapons safely.
So what happened?
Frequent, tragic, accidental discharges. Carelessness, unfamiliarity. Guns jostling while rioting or being load-unloaded. John Shotwell, ironically named, was one of the first recorded fatalities from such an accident on the trail. A grim testament to the danger.
It reveals this critical mismatch, doesn't it, between the perceived threats and their actual competence.
Exactly. The very tools intended for protection, carried in abundance, often displayed as a show of force. They became a significant source of accidental death and injury. It shows how a lack of practical knowledge, combined with exaggerated fears and maybe a prevalent frontier bravado, transformed a supposed safety measure into a deadly hazard for the immigrants themselves.
They feared an enemy that rarely materialized, while the tools they brought to fight it were killing them from within. Bitter irony.
Very much so.
And if that wasn't enough, even their own animals, the domestic ones, posed threats.
Right. Pioneers were frequently thrown, kicked, or dragged by their oxen, horses, mules, especially if startled or on difficult terrain. Stampeding livestock was another chaotic, terrifying event capable of trampling people, destroying property, and the trail itself bore grim witness to the toll on draft animals, littered for miles sometimes with their carcasses, a stark sign of extreme suffering and resource depletion.
Plus, the weather. A constant, formidable adversary, shaping every single day.
Absolutely. Thunderstorms brought intense lightning, killed several emigrants and livestock. Hail, sometimes described as apple-sized, caused numerous painful injuries, damaged wagon covers. Pounding rains turned the plains into treacherous, axle-deep mud, bogging down entire trains for days.
And the wagons leaked.
Eventually, yes. Even the covered wagons succumbed to leaks, soaking bedding, provisions. Then there was the intense heat on the prairies, often over 100 degrees Fahrenheit for days. It caused the wood of wagon wheels to shrink.
What did that mean?
It meant the iron rims could literally roll off. So they had this nightly chore of soaking the wheels in rivers or streams to prevent that. Crucial, time-consuming work.
And the dust.
Ugh, the dust. The trail, often covered in inches of fine, flour-like dust, kicked up by thousands of hooves and wheels. It clung to everything, caused pioneers' lips to blister and crack painfully, irritated eyes, exacerbated respiratory issues. Their only crude remedy: axle grease.
Axle grease on their lips.
Apparently so. And then in the higher elevations of the Rockies, the Cascades, the tables turned. Severe snowstorms, extreme cold, leading to agonizing cases of frostbite, death by freezing, especially for those caught late in the season.
So when you bring all these physical environmental challenges together, what's the core insight? It's clear the environment wasn't passive, was it?
Not at all. It was a dynamic, relentless antagonist, constantly testing, breaking down both human and material endurance. The heat-warped wood, the dust-cracked skin, the rivers drowned people. It transformed the trail from just a path into this active, hostile force that demanded continuous, grueling adaptation, or exacted a severe, often fatal toll.
It wasn't just a journey through nature.
It was a constant battle against it. The environment dictated the terms of survival, forcing an adaptability and resilience that, frankly, few modern individuals could even fathom. Every single mile was a negotiation with a landscape that seemed almost maliciously designed to break them.
Beyond all the physical dangers we've talked about, the emotional toll of this journey. It often began even before the physical trek really started, didn't it?
That's a really important point, yes.
Our sources highlight this profound pain of parting, leaving friends, family, with pioneers understanding deep down that these farewells were likely permanent.
No quick flights back home, then?
No. Henry Garrison's poignant account of his grandmother praying for them, tears streaming down her face, knowing she would never see them again. It's just heartbreaking. It speaks to a depth of sorrow we rarely experience today with our easy travel and communication.
And what's particularly revealing in the sources is the unique, often unspoken emotional burden many women carried. They expressed deep reluctance to sever those ties with kinfolk, friends, their community.
It wasn't always their choice to go, was it?
Often not. Lucy Ide's diary entry powerfully reveals this constant internal struggle, this gnawing doubt. She wrote, "Thoughts will stray back to the comfortable homes we left, and the question, is this a good move?" But echo answers not a word. Imagine that constant internal questioning with no comfort, no answer.
Just silence.
Yeah. Lavina Porter vividly described her despair, throwing herself down on the unfriendly desert and give way like a child to sobs and tears, wishing myself back home. And this homesickness wasn't fleeting. It would be prolonged, profoundly affecting mothers and children. Marilla Washburn Bailey recalled weeping during her first winter in Oregon, desperately homesick for her schoolmates, the life she'd left.
And this invisible labor you mentioned.
Right. The emotional resilience, the caregiving not just for themselves, but managing their children's anxieties, their partner's frustrations, often after walking 15 miles under a relentless sun. It compounded their own profound homesickness and the constant threat of loss. It added this immense, often unarticulated layer of psychological stress, a mental burden far heavier than any physical load they carried.
And that relentless physical and emotional strain, that grinding pace 15 miles a day, mostly on foot, it could push individuals right to the brink, to severe psychological distress.
Absolutely.
Our sources share a truly chilling account that exemplifies this breakdown, shows how people can be pushed beyond, well, recognizable humanity.
It's a stark, almost unbelievable reminder of the trail's brutal psychological impact. The account details Elizabeth Markham, a young mother who apparently went insane along the Snake River, refused to continue the journey.
What happened?
Her husband, in a desperate, agonizing decision, one that was sadly common on the trail when someone couldn't go on, was forced to leave her and their children behind temporarily, hoping to return for them with help.
Oh, no.
But upon his return, he made the horrific discovery that she had tragically clubbed their young son to death and then set fire to one of their wagons.
It's beyond comprehension.
Yeah. It's an extreme case, obviously, but it exemplifies the devastating mental unraveling that could occur under unimaginable duress. It shows how the trail could fundamentally destroy the psychological fabric of individuals, pushing them beyond the brink of sanity of recognized human behavior. The depths of despair are also shown by instances of suicide, which were recorded as a cause of death, underscoring the overwhelming psychological pressure, the isolation, the sense of hopelessness that could consume people. This wasn't just physical hardship, it was a brutal mental battle for survival every day.
And let's revisit that grim description, the nation's longest graveyard. Death was an omnipresent, almost tangible companion, especially, as our sources note, among young children and mothers in childbirth, called the most heartrending of hardships.
The vulnerability was immense.
Absalom Hardin's account of 8-year-old Richard instantly killed after being crushed by that wagon wheel. It highlights the brutal, sudden, seemingly random nature of these losses. No time for proper farewells, no slow goodbyes, just gone.
And the grim reality of burials further amplified that psychological toll. In the harsh, unforgiving conditions, there was little time or opportunity for customary burial rites. Victims were often interred in shallow, hastily dug, unmarked graves, sometimes, as mentioned, directly in the middle of the trail itself.
Why in the trail?
This macabre practice allowed the following wagons to roll over the grave, compacting the dirt. The idea was to erase the scent, deter wolves and other scavengers who quickly learned to associate the trail with easy meals.
That's pragmatic, but horrifying.
Deeply horrifying. And what's almost beyond comprehension is that animals regularly did dig up the deceased, scattering human bones, body parts along the trail. A horrifying, desecrating sight for subsequent travelers to encounter.
Oh my God.
Disturbingly, our sources even record that some children on the trail, exposed constantly to this omnipresent death, became so desensitized, they made a macabre pastime of hunting for graves and skulls.
Children hunting for skulls.
It's a testament to the profound psychological normalization of horror, what becomes normal when you're surrounded by death daily.
So when you put all of this together, the inability to perform proper burials, the desecration of graves by animals, the constant exposure to the physical remains of death, what does this all truly underscore?
It represents a profound assault on human dignity, on the grieving process itself, the denial of traditional closure, respect for the dead, combined with the constant, unavoidable exposure to such horrors. It led to this psychological normalization of death.
Not just desensitization.
I think it goes deeper. It suggests a fundamental shift in their understanding of life and loss, a desensitization born of relentless tragedy. Imagine trying to process immense personal grief while knowing your loved one's body might be exposed, scattered within days. It was a dehumanizing force. But paradoxically, for many, it also seemed to forge this almost unimaginable inner fortitude, a grim resilience.
Okay, despite all the wars we've just discussed, the pervasive suffering, the death, pioneers understood deeply that survival depended heavily on mutual assistance, on structured organization. There were remarkably moments of humanity, ingenuity, resilience, even joy that shine through in the sources.
Absolutely. It wasn't just unrelenting bleakness. They didn't travel as isolated individuals usually. They banded together into parties, companies, often comprised of relatives or people from the same hometown, the same church group, forming a collective unit for protection, shared labor, mutual support,
Safety in numbers.
and shared resources. In some cases, these groups even formalized their cooperation, establishing joint stock companies or more commonly creating written constitutions, codes, bylaws.
Like mini governments on the move.
Essentially, yes. These documents were critical frameworks for managing disagreements, regulating conduct, ensuring some semblance of order and democratic governance within the group. Leaders, like captains, were elected. Though a captain's authority was often practical, limited, setting the daily pace, arbitrating disputes, selecting campsites.
What was a typical train size?
Usually 20 to 40 wagons, found to be more manageable than larger formations logistically. And membership, though planned initially, was often fluid. Wagons could join or depart as circumstances dictated. It shows this incredible capacity for self-organization under extreme duress.
This wasn't just cooperation then. It was creating a functional, adaptable society on the move. Applying democratic principles, community spirit to the wilderness challenges, highlights their capacity for collective problem solving, social innovation.
It really does.
And here's where it gets really interesting, thinking about how they coped. Despite that grueling pace, 15 miles a day, mostly on foot, pioneers diligently established and maintained daily routines. And these routines, however mundane, seem like they were a critical anchor.
Absolutely vital, both psychological and physical anchors in an otherwise chaotic existence. A typical day started early. Before dawn, often around 4 a.m., breakfast, securing bedding, repacking the wagon, aiming to be underway by 7 a.m. to maximize daylight.
Long days.
Very long. A cold meal, usually eaten quickly at noon. Then, after covering their distance, wagons would circle up for the evening around 5 p.m. Men would attend to animals, gather firewood, make repairs. Women prepared a hot meal, often quite elaborate, surprisingly.
And the evenings weren't just about chores.
No, evening activities were crucial for morale. Fostering community, educating children by firelight, singing hymns, popular songs, dancing if someone had a fiddle or banjo, sharing stories, letters from home around the campfire.
Creating normalcy.
Exactly. Many trains observed Sundays as a rest day. For religious observance, yes, but also a vital respite for the oxen. And maybe even more importantly, it allowed women to tackle big chores like laundry essential with all that dust and baking.
And women developed these ingenious practical coping mechanisms too.
Yes, sharing time-saving tricks, like using leftover campfire embers for slow-cooking beans overnight, or churning butter by simply hanging milk buckets off the back of the moving wagon, letting the rough road do the work. Ingenious.
These routines, the rest days, the social activities, they weren't just practical, they were vital psychological anchors, weren't they?
Absolutely. In that environment of constant uncertainty, danger, death, these rituals provided structure, a profound sense of normalcy amidst the abnormal, essential opportunities for emotional release, connection. They were deliberate acts of humanity, countering the dehumanizing forces of the trail, a testament to the deep human need for community, rhythm, meaning, even in the most brutal conditions.
The enduring human spirit, really.
It really is. And that sense of community extended to shared burdens, collective problem solving, and even embracing moments of unexpected joy amidst the hardship.
Like what?
Marriages happened, births too, surprisingly frequent. These were special occasions, moments of light. Newborns sometimes named after natural features they encountered, Platte, Sweetwater, and a truly poignant testament to collective care. There's a documented account of an orphan baby whose mother died on the trail.
Oh no, what happened to the baby?
This infant was passed from breast to breast to be fed by multiple mothers within the wagon train, ensuring its survival through shared humanity.
That's incredibly powerful. That image of solidarity, collective compassion. Wow, isn't it?
And then there were the difficult, heart-wrenching collective decisions, like abandoning cherished possessions, keepsakes, heirlooms, wedding gifts, items known colloquially as leverites.
Leave her right here.
To lighten the wagons, spare the weary, often starving oxen. What kind of things were they forced to leave behind? The emotional cost must have been huge.
Immense. This painful reality underscored that constant, brutal trade-off between sentiment and raw survival. Pioneers left behind family furniture, heavy china sets, ancestral portraits, even musical instruments.
Yeah.
Things that represented their past lives, their identity, their dreams for a comfortable future.
Things that made a house a home. Exactly. And the act of abandoning these leverites was a public admission of defeat against the trail's demands. A deeply emotional sacrifice. a constant reminder of their stripped-down existence. The Trails of Hope, Overland Diaries and Letters collection, invaluable first-hand accounts capturing this persistence, pain, birth, death, alongside moments of love and laughter. It gives this comprehensive glimpse into the human spirit's astonishing capacity for endurance and connection. Despite overwhelming challenges, pioneers found ways to support each other, adapt, even create moments of profound shared humanity, forging bonds born from shared suffering that often lasted a lifetime.
So as we bring this deep dive into the true story of the Oregon Trail to a close, it's just abundantly clear, isn't it? The historical record unequivocally shows this journey was profoundly, fundamentally different from that romanticized adventure often portrayed.
Completely different.
It was, in essence, a crucible of suffering. A 2,000-mile graveyard where disease, relentless hunger, horrific accidents, overwhelming despair, they weren't just intermittent challenges, they were constant, pervasive companions, clinging to them every single step of the way.
We've reiterated those stark statistics of death, 1 in 10 immigrants perishing, a death every few hundred feet on average, the harrowing personal accounts of profound loss, the sheer unending physical and psychological toll. This journey fundamentally reshaped those who survived and extinguished the lives of tens of thousands who didn't.
And it reinforces, without a shadow of a doubt, that few modern individuals, us, accustomed to contemporary comforts, instant communication, advanced medical care, robust infrastructure, few of us could hope to survive, let alone complete, such a journey.
Our modern lives are simply not equipped for that level of elemental hardship. It's almost impossible to truly comprehend.
Yet, despite the immense hardships, the tragic human cost, the Oregon Trail played an indelible, truly crucial role in the westward expansion of the United States.
Undeniable.
It was a primary artery facilitating the settlement of the American West, leading to new communities, states, fundamentally shaping the nation's geography, demographics, cultural identity. It etched itself into the very fabric of American nationhood.
And the trail stands as this powerful symbol of resilience, yes, but also reinvention, embodying a raw, unvarnished, pioneering spirit that drove individuals to seek new opportunities against truly formidable odds.
And traces remain today?
They do. Physical traces endure, preserved as the Oregon National Historic Trail, a sprawling monument to suffering and perseverance. Interpretive centers, museums, hiking routes allow us today to engage with, understand this pivotal, often brutal chapter of American history. Towns established along the route still celebrate their pioneer past, living testaments to how innovation born of necessity, sheer survival, and the compelling power of storytelling shaped the American frontier. It's a legacy forged in grit, determination, and unimaginable pain.
So, what does this all mean for you, listening today, hearing these stories, the experiences of the pioneers? They continue to inspire this mixture of fascination, solemn commemoration, deep reflection. And while an average modern individual would indeed struggle profoundly to endure even a fraction of their journey, the story of the Oregon Trail emigrants is this profound testament to the extraordinary capacity of the human spirit to persevere in the face of overwhelming adversity. It really challenges our assumptions about fragility and strength, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Their collective determination, their profound adaptability, their willingness to confront unimaginable suffering, loss, constant danger. It ultimately forged a legacy of endurance that profoundly shaped the identity and development of a nation. It reminds us that resilience is often born not from comfort, but from enduring what seems unendurable.
So, as you reflect on this journey we've taken today, maybe ask yourself this: what modern conveniences, beliefs, societal structures do we rely on today that, if they were suddenly removed, would reveal a similar vulnerability, a similar exposure to the elemental hardships faced by the pioneers?
That's a provocative thought.
How much of our own resilience is truly inherent, truly within us, and how much is merely a product of our remarkably cushioned environment? Something to think about. Thank you for joining us on the deep dive into the true, unvarnished story of the Oregon Trail.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope this deep dive has given you a newfound appreciation for the incredible endurance of the pioneers, and perhaps a moment to consider the hidden strengths within yourself. Until next time, keep digging deeper.